Worcester. He hosts a program on economy and currency, on business in Massachusetts. Gary, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Well, Gary, I want to talk specifically about Massachusetts because obviously we're like most other states, like all other states at this point, in that we're in a state of quarantine. We can't go outside unless we have providing critical services for the medical profession, or if we're in grocery or delivery. And it's just very restricted right now. And I'm wondering how you think that's going to specifically affect Massachusetts economy, and what do you see coming down the pike?
Yeah, look, for a while I can understand the restrictions and what they're trying to do. I'm getting a little concerned with the restrictions because the longer they have these restrictions on us, that drunken power syndrome seems to come into play. But with that said, we'll have to wait to see how that works out. I think the governor is pretty open-minded. I think it's more of a problem in places like the city of Boston, where I think that particularly the mayor would love to, have a curfew on a regular basis. But, I really believe that, and I'm hoping that as we get toward the date of May 4th, if not sooner, that they, start pushing back on the restrictions and get us out there and start getting us back into society. One way or another, Charles, we cannot live closed up in our homes all day. We cannot, work. We cannot communicate effectively on a business to business level. And secondly, there are a lot of business that are hurting because of this.
Of course, especially small mom and pop stores, restaurants, clubs. It's devastating, and it's I think that the longer it goes on, the worse it's going to be. So there has to be an end game here. Now they're talking about the best way to come out of this thing. If we don't come out of it naturally, and it's been said that once the weather gets hot, it's going to dissipate. But let's assume, for the sake of argument, that we still don't have that kind of confidence. That everyone will have to be tested, and I don't know if they have the facilities for that yet. It's not so easy to do the testing. It requires some biological stuff going on that's not all that available. So I guess that my practical question for you is that as we come out of this thing, we want the government to give us a sense of confidence. What can we expect in terms of getting back to normal?
Yeah, I get I've been reading and trying to understand this whole testing thing, Charles. So what does that mean? We're going to have to walk around with a piece of paper that says, I've been tested. I can go into XYZ store. I can go into a sporting event. I'm not sure that's going to work. I'm not sure if they can really pull off the type of testing that they need to test. And how would they ever get everybody tested? Look at the logistics of that in and of itself is difficult. So I think they have a lot of work there. I think there are ways to roll out and get us back into society, keeping some sort of social distancing going on initially until they get a better handle on what's going on with this virus, and if they can get any drugs together. It's going to be a while before we have any type of vaccination. But I think there's ways to do this. The testing thing, I think, is going to be difficult. I think the logistics of getting it done, dealing with false positives, and a number of different issues, just the facilities that they need to expedite this. And then once the test is done, who's going to hand out that piece of paper, or how are they going to follow you that says you're clear now? And that's
not to mention the fact that if you tested and you test negative, you could catch it two seconds later.
2 seconds later. So
it's not exactly. What's this clamoring? I wonder if that's just more of a political expression. But there are some promising drugs on the horizon, I think. This hydroxychloroquine is being used now. There's the FEMA just released, I think it was 15 million doses of this to all the major hotspots. The hospitals are already using it. I think we're going to see in the next maybe week, hopefully sooner, the results of that. I know in New York State they're using it, New York City they're using it. So let's hope that that's a good drug. I don't know.
And I know in Detroit, they've started using it, where that mayor was totally against it.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's politics. They don't like it because Trump likes it.
Right, exactly. Right? And that's a problem in and of itself, because that's not the way we should be dealing with things now. Easier said.
Exactly. Put that aside. It's a disease. We got to get out of this thing. So you see, are we going to have enough confidence to go to Fenway Park? Do Do you think there's going to be, a resumption of normalcy, as Warren Harding once described it?
I think I think truthfully that we have suffered some great psychological damage to society through this episode. Look, it came on us very quickly, and then there was it was all hyped up. You go from 200,000 deaths to 100,000 deaths. We're not going to have enough hospital beds. People are going to be quarantined. So I think the psychological effect has hurt us in regard to the answer you're looking for. I think people are going to be skeptical to walk into a Fenway Park, a TD Bank North Garden, or any type of a movie theater, any type of event where there are people. Look, I think it's going to be difficult to get people back into restaurants without some sort of method.
Yeah. In fact, I think it's Gavin Newsom of California said that in the new normal, when you go to a restaurant, they're going to take your temperature before you walk in the door, and the waiter is going to be with a mask and gloves.
Right. And look, I've read articles where restaurateurs, they're trying to think of ways, even in this Boston area, to get people back in once they can open. If it holds 100 people, maybe they bring it down to 50. That's hard to do when you have to do the numbers and make it work at the end of the month. Or they start making little cubby holes for people to, sit and try to isolate them. But that's a capital expenditure that I'm not sure they have the money to do right now. So
no,
look,
of course,
it's going to be difficult. But I don't think the Fenway Parks, the big sporting events, concerts are going to be venues, at least for the time being, where people want to go to.
And anytime there's an event like this, there are social changes. Society experiences we experience new customs. And one of those is that now that people are stuck at home, people are telecommuting. I know that's true within the case of my wife. They're working at home and they're enjoying it to a certain extent. And I think that there's going to be a move toward that more. And businesses are going to save a lot of money by not renting these expensive offices in the downtown cities. I think that downtown office real estate might suffer from this because I think more people are going to be spending more time telecommuting. Companies are going to save money by having them do it. And it's a better idea anyway, because you can take care of the kids and do a little homeschooling maybe, or just, have a more normal, it's almost like a return to an agrarian society.
Yeah, and it helps traffic wise. It helps the cities are going to love it. They don't want
not to mention
they don't want the cars on the road. But I do agree. I think if you're a developer that's building space out in the major cities like downtown Boston, you have to be questioning what's going to happen going forward. And I'll tell you, Charles, even in the suburbs, I think that problem may exist. People can do at home just about anything that they do in the office. There may be a time that they have to enter the office, but for the majority of the time, I think they could do it elsewhere.
Of course. Gary, what other possible changes do you see emanating in terms of how we conduct our affairs as a result of this? Because I think it remains to be seen, but this is going to affect people's behavior and custom.
Look at it, we've already start to we see the delivery of groceries. It was happening before this, but it's big time. I used to laugh at my mother-in-law years ago when she told me that groceries were delivered to her house. Now I get it. I mean, in a situation like this, I think the Amazon type deliveries, grocery deliveries are going to become more and more a way of life. People are not going to want to expose themselves into grocery stores. Look I think going to the bank is going to be an issue. Going to the, I was in the post office the other day. They don't want you within so many feet of the teller when you walk up there, and I get all that, but I don't think that's going to change. I think anywhere there's interpersonal contact, people are going to look at it and try and figure out the best way to minimize any type of social, social quote unquote interaction.
No, and I'm not sure that's altogether a terrible thing. Anyways, I've never liked. I kind of like the idea of a little social distancing, and handshakes are probably not the most sanitary thing to do. There are other countries, other cultures that they don't do that for reasons. Maybe the Japanese do a little bow because they might have had a pandemic like 1,000 years ago. I don't know.
Right.
These things develop. So these aren't bad things. Of course, one of the negative aspects of this, and it's been also said, is that it probably is going to go away maybe mid to late June, May, even June, but it's going to come back in the fall. And and if you look at the trajectory of the Spanish flu virus, it came back big, and in fact, it killed a lot more people than our involvement in World War I did.
Yeah, no, I think that's something to be concerned with. It. Look, we're already starting to see that fear when we look at colleges. We're in a great college state community. They're already saying we're not sure we're bringing the students back in the fall. We're
It's
going
going to
to
be
this.
that'll be a disaster.
Yeah,
I mean, can you imagine? I mean, why go to BU and Harvard? And I know they have prestige, but you're going to spend 50, 60, $70,000 when there are colleges that are doing this online very well. You know,
yeah.
been doing it for years, like University of Phoenix or Southern New Hampshire. People are why, they're gonna lose a big chunk of their students if they don't open.
Right, and even if they do open shelves, I think they're going to lose. There's going to be a reevaluation on the part of that, and I think we're going to have to look at how we educate students. Look, I always thought in New England, snowstorms, anything's possible. We had a means to teach when the kids were out of school. I think that has to be firmed up over the next several months, at least before we get back there in the fall and start again. Because if this happens, we can't have generations of children missing months and months of classroom time, no matter how hard the teachers are trying to educate them, via online or whatever means they're using.
Gary Goldman, you have a background in business and in economics. What is going on with the fact, and they had to do it, that the Federal Reserve has basically bonded, I think, $2 trillion in debt and more, probably by the time this is over, it might be even twice that. And what is that going to do to the federal deficit? What's it going to do to the value of the dollar? Are we going to see inflation? What do you think?
Well, I think the president and the federal government have done what they had to do. They're still thinking of putting more money out on the street. I'm not sure how all those programs are working. That's a whole nother story. But somebody's got to look at whether they forgive it or not. Somebody has to pay for that debt. And in the long run, it is going to affect the dollar. And I think at some point we are going to be dealing with inflation. I'm not sure when that's going to happen. It all depends on if the economy rebounds and how things play out. But those are all the things we have to start looking for. We're kidding ourselves if we believe that's not going to happen. I mean, I love the president. I think he's doing a good job. But that the economy is going to come back. I get it. But there's a lot more debt out there in the short period that it's closed down that we're going to have to deal with. Because if we keep burdening our future generations with this, it's a no-win. You can't pile on that much debt.
Oh, it's going to have to come back in a way that would never possibly have predicted in order to sop up that extra money. And that's probably, even in the best case scenario, isn't quite going to make it.
No, and then you look at over and above that, when you look at small business, and I do a lot of consulting work with small business, particularly contractors. Small business guys do not have a lot of cash going on. They rely on that cash flow, the constant in and out. And if we lose the amount of businesses that are being predicted, which I've read anywhere from 8, 9 to 10% of the number of small businesses, you extrapolate that not just in Massachusetts, but across the country. That's a big number that will affect how you're going to generate taxes and revenue to pay off debt, never mind keep the government going. So I think we have some real problems on our hands on a local level as well as on a national level. I was reading today that the state of Massachusetts has big problems financially right now. No revenue.
Well, of course. And although I heard that the Department of Revenue is up, as is the IRS, but however, anyway, Gary Goldman, let my listeners and viewers know where they can get more information about you and your work.
Yeah, so I am on WCRN Radio, 8:30 a.m. every Saturday from 8 to 10 a.m. And once we get through this crisis, we will be on every day of the week, along with Saturdays. We're going full time. You can find me at Gary on BPL. That's GaryOnBPL.com. That's the website. The name of the show is Business, Politics, and Lifestyles.
Excellent. All right, Gary Goldman, listen, thanks so much. Nice talking to you as always.
Yep.
And have a great afternoon. Be careful.
Yeah, thank you. You too, Charles.
All right.